Hello everyone, welcome to Hakan Elbir'le Diyaloglar. Today we are here at the Royal Dog Center for Sustainability, University of East London Docklands campus. I am joined by Gosia Kwiatkowska, the Director of Rix Inclusive Research Institution. Welcome, Gosia. Before we talk about inclusion and diversity, I would like to start with you. If someone met you outside of your professional role, how would you describe yourself?
Interesting question. Usually when I meet someone and I will say, hello, my name is Gosia, and then I say, what about you? What brings you here? So I would describe myself as someone who is really curious about people, who ask lots of questions, and who is passionate about inclusion. But I'm the curious one and people person.
So we can call you as curious person?
Curious Gosia, yes.
From when? At what age?
I was always like this.
Always
be. I'm a middle child, so my older brother was the one who would be talking, and I would be the one who would be listening and asking more questions. And I remember from a very early age, I would be the person who would be sitting quietly, not having lots to say, but not saying it, and just asking questions. And yes.
Wow. So what drew you into the field of inclusion and research? I mean, was it a professional decision or more personal one?
You know, this is, again, interesting questions, because I wasn't ever sort of sitting down and thinking, I'm going to work in this field. And when I think about it, I actually, because I'm left-handed, I was wearing glasses all the time since childhood. I was kind of the odd one out. I have ADHD, I am dyslexic, and so I was always sort of acutely aware of difference and people who might feel different. And I remember a time when I was 10 or 11, and I was at summer camp, and there was a photographer taking pictures of us. And there was this girl who clearly now, when I think about it, she had some learning difficulties and some disfigurement in her face. And no one was taking picture with her. So I walked over and I said, oh, let's have picture together. And we did. And I remember that smile. And so I was always, so it's personal. Always aware of difference and how people suffer in silence and they feel excluded. And I think jobs and opportunities and studies kind of drew me always to jobs where I felt I could make a difference for someone.
I see. Okay, diversity and inclusion are widely used terms nowadays. Do you ever feel they've become buzzwords?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. They everywhere you look and you see diversity, inclusion. They are buzzwords. They're very different words, I think. You know, diversity is very much of who is in the room. And when I think diversity, I just see representation of different cultures, different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, different cultures, and not necessarily disability. Inclusion, when I hear inclusion, that means a bit more, it's a wider term. But also for me, inclusion is who is heard, who belongs, and who is accepted, whose voices are being heard. So it's very different to diversity. And yes, they are buzzwords, and what the meaning for me is, it doesn't necessarily represent what I see when those buzzwords are being used by different people or organizations.
Yeah, correct. So what's the difference between a diverse organization and a truly inclusive one?
Yeah, so similar to what I said earlier, it's about, diverse, having a representation of people, but truly inclusive one is where you have lots of different kinds of people with differences and disabilities, all belonging, feeling that they belong, the voices being heard in various leadership roles, that they feel that they belong. So it becomes a belonging. The people feel that they belong, that the spaces, places, services, practices are all welcoming and are designed to the edges, are designed, I talk about universal design quite often. For me, it's when it's designed universally that we anticipate different and we design all those spaces, places, services, systems to be genuinely anticipatory of difference, and therefore no barriers when these people, different people are part of an organization.
Exactly. So where do institutions and organizations struggle with the most, actually, inclusion? Do you think that it's on policy level or leadership level or on a daily, on a daily routine and that kind of manners?
Yeah. So, from the 25 years of experience working in this field, from research and from experience, I know there is a big mismatch between policy and practice, and it's been recorded in many different levels. And so inclusion, diversity, those ideals are at policy levels. They are visible in different policies, but in practice, people often say, oh, we don't have resources, it's about time, it's about having additional funding to provide or to make adjustments. And I sort of feel that there is a responsibility at each level to ensure that it's truly possible to have inclusion. So the funding needs to be there, but also the attitudes. I think the change of the attitudes of people and the understanding what we really mean when we say inclusion. Because, I have lots of examples from practice where compliance, there is inclusion. But in practice, it's not. I'll give you one example from our university. It's being addressed, but it's a real example. Disability dyslexia team. They do assessments of different students that need, accommodations and reasonable adjustment. And they provide adjustable tables for every classroom, library, everywhere you see those adjustable tables. And the estates deliver the tables to the classrooms, and they put them somewhere and put the sticker on it, disability and dyslexia team, do not remove. It's stuck against the wall. So compliance, yes. Inclusion at the policy level, at the university level, yes. In practice, no. It's exclusion, it's not quality inclusion. That table is just the sticker on the table, the position of this table is not functional, it's not inclusive, it's very reinforcing that exclusivity. So, yeah, it's a very different things, but it's changing of the mindset and understanding. So at every level, these people from a state, do they actually understand why they're putting this table there, what it means? People from disability and dyslexia team, do they understand what this table signifies? Putting that marker, it's not true. For me, the true inclusion at universities, talking from my experience working at the university for 20 years, it's like I said earlier, it's about belonging. It's not about me telling someone I need this adjustment. It's that there are so different options available for me. So when I come to that classroom, I can feel I can sit at that table or use that table because I have that need. I don't need to advertise to everybody and show someone and justify why I need this table. And once we at that stage where we've designed things from the outset with the anticipatory design, that's when we have inclusion. So just to go back to the question, because I sort of moved away a little bit, it's the responsibility of everybody, but real understanding what we mean by inclusion and how do we make someone to belong. So this, it's attitude. So it's not, that's the biggest barrier, that's the biggest problem, I feel.
That brings me to next question, actually. Do you think that inclusion is something you can teach or something people need to experience?
You have to experience it. You can't teach it. I don't think you can teach it because everybody has their own mindsets, they have their own value systems, the cultural practices, that comes from your home and your culture. I'm teaching social work, so with social workers, we address those unconscious biases and our own values and ethics and how they might present barrier to acceptance, to inclusion, to diversity, to respect for others. And so I think people learn they learn when they have experience. They don't learn when they read something. They can read, they can memorize, but that doesn't necessarily change the way you are. You can only change the way you are when you're exposed, when you're working, when you're recognizing, when you see that the difference is really valued and celebrated. And yes, you change your mindset because from what you believed, that you often, get those beliefs from very early on, from your family, from your culture, from your immediate sort of religion as well. There's so many beliefs in different parts of the world around disability and difference that to change that is you can't just by teaching somebody. You have to live it, you have to experience, you have to feel it and see it, and then it then becomes common sense.
So what do we need then to experience it? I mean, what kind of tools or what kind of needs in order to practice it or experience it?
Well, we need to have diversity visible, first of all. So have diversity and start bringing and listening to people, so having true co-production. So as the Rix Centre, as you know, we are Inclusive Research Institute, and what that means, that we work with people, we don't work on people. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to work with people, value people and value people's voices, value people's experiences, because if we don't, then we're going to repeat the same mistakes the previous generation have done, and we're not going to move forward.
We do have the same approach actually. When we talk about dialogue in the dark and dialogue in silence, and when we talk about blind and deaf people, I always keep saying we are doing with blind people. We are doing something with blind people, not for blind people.
Absolutely.
Similar approach.
And it's just so important, because otherwise if you're doing something for people, you're putting assumptions that you have based on your own experiences and mindset. You cannot understand what the lived experience is for someone simply by studying them. You have to study with people, because they know what the barriers are, what the problems are, and they help us to find the solutions together. So it's just so important. The co-production element, I think, is the most important element, but true co-production, that people are valued and listened and engaged across, from the beginning to the end. So the whole, in the iterative circle, not just at one, because traditionally people might be included at one point somewhere, at the consultation stage. No, you have to have people from the early, to come up with the problems and issues that exist. If I'm thinking of research, what the problems are, what the solutions could be. Let's work together.
So you mentioned a bit about Rix, but for someone who's never heard of Rix, how to explain what the Rix does?
Okay, so what it does and what it is. So Rix stands for Rix. Rix is it's in honor of Lord Brian Rix, who was a lifelong campaigner for people with learning disability. And he was the first chancellor of our University of East London. And he was the chancellor for 17 years, so very long. And when he was here, he set up the Rix Centre with the mission to improve the lives of people with learning disabilities through the use of new media technologies. So we are an inclusive research institute that we work with people. So we employ people with disabilities and differences, and we look at inclusion in education, health, social care, communities, employment. And so we have a variety of research projects where we see how we can engage with people and with technology, and how we can adapt those technologies to be also more accessible, to enable people with disabilities to have their voices heard, even if they have more complex disabilities where they are non-verbal, for example.
I see. So what makes inclusive research different from the traditional academic research?
Well, I think it's mostly working with people and not working on people, because traditionally, academics will be working on people. Now, working with people, having them as part of your team, being paid and recognized for the role like anybody else, I think that's the difference, that's the main difference. And working with people, quite often what that means, that you need to have action-based research. So you cannot come into research with your preconception or hypothesis about something. You're actually coming open-minded and finding out with people what the problems are. And by doing so, you, as an academic, you might feel a little bit out of control because you need to start sharing the power with the other person, and that's it's like uncertain, a bit worried for academics. I'm not sure what I'm doing, but this is the process I have to go through, and that's the difference.
And this is totally different from the academic approach, right?
Very different.
So through your work at Rix, what you have learned, whose voices are heard and whose are still missing?
Lots of voices are still missing, and yeah. For me, what I've learned, I've worked for Rix for over 25 years now, and for the university. Well, Rix was established in 2004, so I was there since the beginning. And what I've learned is that you really do need to work with people, have them on your teams in various roles, share the power with people, and the voices that are heard and the voices that are missing. I think what I've learned that, and not just Rix, but just generally in academia and in communities, is that there are pockets of excellent practice. There are really great examples of excellent practice where you have people with disabilities in leading roles and working. But there are also groups where they will advertise inclusive research, but then when you actually observe, it's not working with people, it's not having power with the person, it's about exercising your power and not really doing. So I've just learned that it's easier said than done. It's hard, it requires perseverance, but when you do it and when you do it right, you get much greater impact, and you can see that change is possible. And that's what, over the 25 years, I've seen little changes. Not loads, but I have seen little changes.
And this impact also something can be measurable?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I certainly
Okay,
believe
we are still, measuring our social impact here,
Yeah.
and hopefully we will be sharing our impact report in a couple of weeks.
Okay, great.
So, as I mentioned earlier, we are trying to build small bookshelves, small library at Istanbul Dialogue Museum. So I always ask my guests to bring a book. Did you bring a book?
I did. I bring the book, and you know what?
Yeah.
You told me about the book like a month ago,
Yeah.
and I was thinking, what book shall I take? What book shall I take? And I love my books, and when I read them, it depends on the book. I sometimes give it away and let it go somewhere, or share with a friend, and then give it to somebody else because I don't have enough space in my house for lots of books. And then yesterday I was meeting my colleague and we were sort of thinking, I said, I need to bring the book. I don't know which one to take. And I'm thinking maybe this one, maybe this one. But then I'm going to just go into, when I come home in the evening, I will open my drawer. I have books in drawers. So I open my drawer and see which one jumps out and feels the right one. So I was thinking, maybe The Power of Now, maybe Scala Grid. But then this one came to my hands. It's Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. So I don't know if you know this, you probably know this book. And that's the book I brought.
So why did you choose? And by the way, can you please open to a page randomly and read a sentence or maybe paragraph that resonates?
Okay, will do. So what was the first question?
First, why did you choose this?
Why did I choose this? Because this book really made me think. Well, the title says "Man's Search for Meaning." We often say, "What is the meaning of life?" And then I read, and this sort of when we're talking about this, and we're talking about inclusion. For me, it is also about the meaning of life. Why are we doing what we're doing? We want to have purpose. We do something that we are passionate about. And I myself find very lucky to be able to do what I do. And the fact that I'm here still 25 years on, and I'm not intending to leave the university, is because I really sort of believe, and I feel I found my passion, and my meaning is, for me, is to whatever the barriers, whatever the problems, I'm not just going to let it go and move on and find another job. I want to continue doing what I'm doing because I know and I believe that we have the principles right, and that work is really very important and meaningful. The same as the Dialogue Cafe. And I know despite the barriers that are put in front of us, we sort of think, okay, how can we overcome? We're not taking no for an answer. We know what we're doing is really important. And this book, written by Viktor Frankl, who was a prisoner in Holocaust, and he spent many years and really trying to stay sane and find what is the meaning of life. So they felt, the prisoners felt that they had to go beyond those questions. They had to, through suffering, they had to find something to hold on to. And I sort of felt that we have to find something to hold on to in order to make and bring change. So when I saw this book today, I thought, oh yeah, that's the one I'm going to.
And he was one of the survivors, right?
Yes, he was one of the survivors. So he survived and he worked and he wrote.
Yeah.
So random page.
Yes, please.
I had the tissue, but let's see, it just opens. Yeah, there you go. It opens here. So let's see what sort of stands out to me here. Okay, this is nice. And so, and there were always choices to make. Every day, every hour, offered the opportunity to make a decision which determined whether you would or would not submit to those powers that threatened to rob you of your very self, your inner freedom, which determined whether or not you would become the plaything of circumstance. Renewing freedom and dignity became modeled into the form of the typical inmate.
What does this, resonates to you? What do you want to talk about this sentence or this small paragraph?
Yeah, well, just the start. There were always choices to make. We have always choices to make. It's up to us which choices we make. Despite the fact that you are imprisoned, this person, they felt that you have to find some freedoms, and you had the freedoms of your mind, your imagination, and what's possible. So yes, I think that's quite poignant. There's always choices to make. You can't just say, we had to give up. There is always choices to make, and I think for our society, we need to know, we need to believe in those values and see what choices can we make to, when we talk about belonging and we talk about acceptance, we talk about inclusion, participation, community engagement. The way, if we ever achieve this, it can be achieved only with everybody collectively start to make choices that are based on ethics and equality and diversity and inclusion rather than on power, finances, or other drivers. And I think it's for us to make those choices.
Do you think that, for instance, when you compare new generation with your generation, for instance, do you think that new generation gives up easily? And if so, why? Why do you think that the new generation, like age 17 to 20, let's say, they can easily give up? They don't want to, let's say, compete, or they don't want to push harder, instead easily give up and then move forward?
Well, I don't think it's true that the whole generation between 17 and 20 give up. I think the circumstances that we grow up in definitely build resilience, and like from where I come from, and my journey was much, much harder than a lot for the younger generation. But saying that, this young generation is going to be they're going to be the leaders of this country or world, right? And so I think they don't necessarily give up, because that generation, when I'm thinking about these individuals, making a huge sort of generic statement, they grew up with the internet, with the mobile phones, with games. And I think with games, it's actually a very important skill that they all have, because that does foster the resilience to win the game. So they can play for hours and hours and hours. And I think that as people grow older, as you get, I'm 55, so as I grow older, I feel, I have more confidence in what I'm thinking. I sort of get I don't get intimidated easily by some mistakes. I know they don't matter that much. Now my daughter is, grown up. She's starting her own family. I have a very different perspectives, and I know my experiences shaped who I am, and they shaped my resilience and my determination to do something. and my confidence. And I think equally for that younger generation, as they start going into employment, they have the skills that we didn't have, and they have the fact that they were able to play all these games. They had to be very strategic and quick thinking. And so I think they have a lot of skills that would be very useful in this newer generation, where technology is, advanced, and they can bring change quicker. And I think if people have experience of seeing other people in the community, recognizing and getting that empathy for their friends that might have some difference, they're actually less exclusive than our generations were, and less discriminatory.
Okay.
I think there is, and because especially in England, especially in our community here, where Newham is one of the most diverse areas in the UK, and so having the diversity of people, sharing the experiences, sharing the cultures, I think those points of difference are blurred, become one, and I think, I feel that the claim that the younger generation doesn't have that resilience, I question that. I think they do. They're just still very young, and maybe they're maturing a bit later than we had to mature.
Okay. So as we know, we are based in the uni campus. And how do you see UL's role in East London, especially in communities that has been historically excluded?
I think it's huge. We are wonderfully positioned in the east of London. Lots of investment have come to this area. Lots of people had to move out because the prices of properties had gone up. But there is still sort of communities remaining. And I think our university has a huge responsibility, not only role to play, but responsibility for including people, all different people that live in our community. So like you say, quite a lot of them might be marginalized and discriminated against, the smaller ethnic minorities as well. And so there's the whole sort of fabric of society. We have them all here. And so by opening doors, having events, I really like the fact that the university removed all the barriers to enter campus. It's an open campus, anybody can just walk in. That's just wonderful. Having events where people come in, a community, students come with their families. Of course, we have a lot of mature students who are great role models for the children. And so then those children being able to come onto campus and see what's going on and see that they are belonging even before they come to higher education, and they feel that this is actually something that they can aspire to, whereas in other areas people who are from lower ethnic sort of economic backgrounds might feel that the university is not something it's for them, that they would belong. But having this campus open, I think it really encourages people in local areas to go to a university. And I think higher education is really important because it helps to open eyes to some of those issues that exist in society and help students or young people to develop critical thinking. And so the more of these sort of diverse communities come to higher education, and then we'll be able to secure better jobs in the future. And like I then said, we'll come to those leading roles. That's where the inclusion becomes real.
So what does meaningful inclusion look like in a university settings beyond ramps, beyond policies?
People being in those different roles, genuinely the voices being heard, they being in the positions of power as well, being represented, and that's really important because it's not only to sort of do what we say. So our university say a lot of wonderful things, and there are wonderful pockets of excellent practice, but there are also examples where that is not visible yet. So I think, yes, bringing people in and putting and enabling people to be in those positions of power where the voices are being heard and listened to and acted upon. Not just as the sort of token, a window dressing, but actually as a meaningful engagement. And those individuals, when we have those individuals in those powers and in those positions, they become role models and motivators for all the other people who might identify, with similar characteristics and feel, oh, if that person can do it, so can I.
Dialogue Cafe is a deaf-led organization, and from your perspective, and a cafe like Dialogue Cafe, how do you think that to contribute to inclusion on a campus?
Greatly. As you know, before you even came in, when someone mentioned that, this is what they're trying to open, and there was this person who won the bid and is going to open Dialogue Cafe, and I was beyond excited. It's very, very, very important, because that's about the presence, that's about creating a space where everybody can belong, where people who are visually hearing impaired can lead and can be they dictate, we communicate using sign language. So now it's not us adjusting and adopting your ways of communicating. And we're going to communicate on our terms. But we are here, we're giving you tips, and that's how you model inclusion. Without initiatives like that, then inclusion will always be present in papers and policies and documents, but not lived. For me, it's a lived experience, and this is what inclusion is like. So I'm very proud of having you and the Dialogue Cafe here in RDCS, so close to our Rix.
Yeah.
It feels like we sort of starting from the corner with the accessible changing places toilet, then Inclusive Research Institute, and then Dialogue Cafe. And let's hope that we will be able to sort of move that lived examples of what inclusion really should look like across not only this building but wider into the campus. I feel that we are the pocket of excellent practice, and that's what it looked like. But we need the wider university to adopt it.
Yeah. Thank you, first of all. Do you think that ordering a coffee in sign language can shift how people see things?
Absolutely. I think this is the first step. Especially when you're ordering in sign language, it's not only that you need to learn, which is fun for a lot of people, but it can be intimidating. But it put people into that position that shifts, it turns things on its head. So normally the person who is hearing impaired would have to try to communicate in some other language, and they will feel the barrier and they need to do something. So it's an uncomfortable position to be in. But that's the reality, daily reality. Here, people who come and order those drinks or snacks or lunch, whatever, they are momentarily put into that position. So especially if we then talk to people and explain and discuss it, that's the mind shift that we require for change of attitudes. Without that, from the book, they wouldn't have understood it. But from this lived experience of needing to order coffee or a snack using sign language, suddenly shift that power. Secondly, because it's embodied, you need to be thinking about it, you need to sort of do something with your hands that you're not familiar with, so it becomes embodied. So I feel it makes a deeper impact. And I think it's really important. As you know, when we have our communication cafe with our social work students on an annual basis, and before you came along, I only invited people with learning disabilities, and they had to communicate in a sort of cafe style. We always called it communication cafe. But as soon as Dialogue Cafe appeared in our building, then this was just natural and normal that we bring them in and give them the experience and force them. And then when we did feedback afterwards and discussed it with students, they said that they initially felt really sort of scared, and actually they wouldn't have come to the cafe before because they would be intimidated by the fact that they need to order in sign language. But having had that session and having practice, they actually felt that afterwards they can come and use this cafe more often.
So can we say Dialogue Cafe creates real change?
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
Thank you. If you had to describe inclusion is just one word, what would it be?
Belonging.
Belonging.
Belonging, definitely. It's, if you belong, then you're included. If you don't feel you belong, then you're not included. Then there's no inclusion.
And we need to also embrace those people who are excluded from the society, right?
Absolutely.
Because, as you said, we are living in Newham borough, and when we look at the data, exclusion is so high in this borough, amongst other boroughs. So I think there are lots of things that need to be done.
Absolutely.
Because what I observe, and I'm sure you already observed this, when you, for instance, as a Dialog Cafe, when we employ a deaf person, we give them a job, but this is not only a job for them. It's beyond job, actually. It's a life.
Of course, it's the purpose. I mean, we all need purpose in life and have a sense of doing something meaningful for others. That's that's what we all need. And why people who are deaf or hard of hearing or have learning difficulties should be, excluded from that. I think everybody should have opportunity to work and be included and valued. And not we are all very different. There is nobody who is perfect at all levels. That is, the normal, quote unquote. There isn't. We are all sort of this jagged line. I might have these disadvantages there, but I might be very good at this. And everybody, and that's included people with hearing impairments, visually impairment, physical disabilities, cognitive difficulties, neurodivergent people, different shapes and sizes of people, different colors, different backgrounds. We are not like that. We are all like this. So we need to focus on those strengths that people have and see how each individual in the society can meaningfully contribute to have their own purpose and their own satisfaction of being part of, belonging. Again, otherwise, it's difficult to have a meaningful life, a good life.
Good life.
Yeah.
So in a world that feels quite divided today, and considering the fact that, the Iran and the US, what still gives you hope?
What gives me hope, over the 25 years, like I've mentioned, working in this field, things have moved slowly, but have moved in the right direction. And so places like Dialog Cafe, things like Rix Centre, things like, other good practices that exist, that gives me hope. And the fact that we're having this conversation gives me hope. Because if we talk to people about it, or if we share and we demonstrate that things are possible, the more of those pockets of good practice or excellent practice start sprouting, and the more we educate our students, our communities, and work with them and include them and show them that the change is possible, I think, in co-production and working together, that gives me hope.
Thank you very much, Gosia. It was a real pleasure to speaking with you. Thank you all for watching Hakan Elbir'le Diyaloglar. And if you like to be a part of these conversations, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you in another dialogue. Thank you.